Can Pokemon fans design moves better than the actual developers? Let's find out today. I'm going to competitively analyze move concepts from Reddit. We're off to an excellent start here with the proposed move High Five, and a beautiful demonstration of the move in this drawing of Phalanx and Galarian Darmanitan getting ready to do the High Five of a lifetime. This move was proposed by the Reddit user OKLead4501. And this is a status move that has the effect of passing down all of your current stat stage changes, positive and negative, to a target. Proposed Pokemon that get this move include Phalanx, I think, because Phalanx is getting ready to pass its no retreat boost to Galarian Darmanitan according to the graphic. I don't know if Phalanx has a hand with which to high five, but that's okay, I'm sure Phalanx could figure it out, he's a smart fella. And then of course we have Ambipom, Passimian, and Machamp also learning the move, in the top right corner here pictured, as they are hand-based Pokemon. This is a really interesting idea, and the most obvious way you could use it is in competitive doubles, where one Pokemon would boost up, and then pass the boost it just used to an ally. Now there are already sort of some ways to do this. There is a move called Psych Up in the game that allows you to copy the boosts of a Pokemon and apply them to yourself. But I think High Five seems a bit better because the booster itself is able to pass on the boosts, freeing up a move slot for the receiver to just run attacks and not worry about running Psych Up, which hogs a move slot. Obviously this would be pretty good on Phalanx. Phalanx has the great boosting move No Retreat, and with High Five it could pass this boosting move on to, for example, pictured here, Galarian Darmanitan, who could also abuse this move with a Choice Band. Usually it's tough to receive boosts when you have a Choice Band. An ally could buff you with the move Coaching, which buffs your attack and defense by one stage, but High Five promises to offer a little bit more than just a mere attack and defense. It could offer every stat in the case of Phalanx, and that's a powerful thought indeed. I will say that this is a lot of turns of setup. You've got to send out the Phalanx, click No Retreat, then click High Five. That's 3 entire turns. Your Phalanx is wide open for attack. But maybe it could work. Phalanx has Defiant as well, so if you intimidate the Phalanx, it will have more attack that it can then pass on with High Five. Maybe you could run like Weakness Policy with High Five to somehow utilize that so you don't have to waste a turn boosting with No Retreat. It just seems like a lot of setup. Doubles is very fast-paced. And maybe Coaching would still be better just purely because it only takes 1 turn to boost an ally with Coaching, whereas this is 2 entire turns of setup. You have to run at Phalanx, which is not a very powerful Pokemon. But the idea certainly has potential, and I like the design of the move. It's such a good idea that I wonder why it doesn't already exist. It's kind of a no-brainer. Like, Psych Up is in the game, there's hard swap effects like this, but it's kind of crazy that there's no move like this that just passes your boosts onto an ally. There's Baton Pass, of course, but this is more direct in a doubles context. And the other application of High Five is that you could pass on a debuff to an enemy, because it says in the text that it passes on negative boosts as well, negative stats changes, stat nerfs, stat lowering. So if you have your speed lowered by Icy Wind or something, you can then just High Five that speed loss to an enemy. Could this be speed control? Have your speed lowered and then you lower their speed? That could be useful. That could certainly be useful. That's more of a niche use for it, I imagine, but considerable one nonetheless. I honestly think this is a great move design. I even like the flavor of it. High Five is a pretty cool way to actually communicate this mechanic. You're high-fiving with your ally and passing stats onto them. That makes sense. That would read well in the game. And I think that this is a cool move design. I don't know about its actual competitive application, but in doubles it does have potential. On these Pokemon, what does Ambipom have in terms of boosts? I can't even think of what it has, actually. Does it have Swords Dance? I know Machamp gets Bulk Up, but Bulk Up High Five is literally just worse version of Coaching. So I don't know how good that is. And then Passimian has Defiant, and maybe it also has Bulk Up, but I can't imagine any of those Pokemon would be that great at utilizing High Five. But the move idea itself, excellent. Like I said, I'm sort of amazed that an effect like this doesn't already exist. Next we have a new Dragon-type attack called Dragoon Jump. This was proposed by the Reddit user Hexus Levry. This is a physical Dragon-type attack with 16 PP and 110 base power. The user boosts its attack by 1 stage before jumping in the air, so a 2-turn hit effect similar to Sky Drop or Fly. And if the projected damage is enough to guarantee a KO, the user will descend directly at the end of the turn. So this is sort of similar to Gen 1 Hyper Beam, actually. If you don't know, Gen 1 Hyper Beam is a cool move, because if Hyper Beam 1-hit KOs the opponent, it will bypass the charge turn that Hyper Beam usually has. Usually after you use Hyper Beam, you have to recharge for a turn, but not if you get a 1-hit. This is like applying that concept to a invulnerability move that makes you invulnerable on the first turn and then strikes on the second turn. Moves like Dig and Bounce and Fly, etc. But now, if the projected damage is enough to KO the enemy, you will bypass the invulnerability turn and strike immediately, also receiving an attack boost, similar to Meteor Beam, which is another move that charges and gives you a special attack boost. I have to say that I think this is a good idea as well. I've always liked Gen 1 Hyper Beam, even though it's an unintentional mechanic. It's cool, because there's an opportunity cost associated. If you Hyper Beam and they switch to a rock type or something, you're stuck there charging. But if you think they're going to stay, you can go for the instant Hyper Beam for the higher damage. And this is a similar idea, where you could be really punished for clicking Dragoon Jump here if they simply go to a Fairy type. They will be stuck in the air, descend, using a Dragon move, which is going to deal 0 damage, and then they can just follow up with a simple Moonblast and KO your Pokemon. But it has a high reward. If you go for the Dragoon Jump at the right time, you can KO what's in front of you and also get an attack boost. And this would probably still sometimes also be used even if it can't get a 1-hit KO, just because you get the attack boost and you're invulnerable. So, similar to how sometimes Meteor Beam is clicked even though Power Herb has been consumed, but you just want the extra special attack, and you can afford to sit there, this is maybe even a little bit better because it makes you invulnerable while you're receiving the boost, unlike Meteor Beam. And the Pokemon that can get Dragoon Jump here are suggested to be Dragapult, Garchomp, Flygon, Roaring Moon, and Dragonite, various powerful Dragon-type attackers. This would be a great option on Dragapult, wouldn't it? Although, I don't know, maybe it would still prefer Dragon Darts for the consistency, but it would be a considerable option. It would be a way for it to boost its attack and leverage its speed. That's certainly noteworthy. I think I like this move design. I think it feels balanced because of how hard fairies would punish it, and generally dragon resistances as well. It sort of has a focus punch quality where you have to make a prediction to actually get value out of it, and the Gen 1 Hyper Beam style mind game there, which I do enjoy. It's one of the cooler things about Gen 1 is the presence of Hyper Beam and the interesting dynamics that that move can create in Gen 1. And I've always wanted there to be a Gen 1 Hyper Beam style move reintroduced, and this would fill that void, wouldn't it? I think the fact that it's a dragon move also balances it because of Fairy being such obvious counterplay and obvious way to punish it. Here we have a series of moves from the user Low Appearance 796, who says, I love Freeze Dry's concept of super effectiveness against an unrelated type, so I made concepts for a few more. The first suggestion here is the move Brainstorm, which is a 70 power electric type special attack that, similar to Freeze Dry, deals super effective damage against the psychic type, in addition to the other types that electric can hit super effectively. Now, what's great about Freeze Dry is the fact that it erases a resistance, because Freeze Dry is an ice-type special attack that hits water super effectively, and normally water resists ice. That is really where the power of Freeze Dry lies. Not only allowing you to hit another type super effectively, but that type being something that would normally resist ice. This suggestion is against the Psychic type. It's thematically appropriate with the Brainstorm name, and it's an interesting idea. I do wonder how useful it would be, though. Psychic is kind of a weak type in modern Pokemon, and electric types already do good neutral damage to most psychic types with just a simple Thunderbolt, I would think. Perhaps it would be good specifically against Galarian Slowking, who is the most prominent psychic type in modern Pokemon. But none of these suggested Pokemon to learn Brainstorm would really be that amazing at punishing Galarian Slowking with it. It does occur to me that Brainstorm would be a really interesting option, in particular on Magnezone, because you would now have a super effective option against Steel Psychic types, which is interesting, and you would be able to trap them. So maybe in Gen 9 this could trap Iron Crown and do big damage to it. Or maybe in lower tiers where you might see Pokemon like Bronzong or Metagross, that could be useful. It also could be interesting to do ×4 super effective damage to Pokemon with the Water Psychic typing, like Slowbro, even though they're not that common these days. It's an interesting idea. The next suggestion is Aerial Assault, which is a fighting type physical attack with 70 power that deals super effective damage against the flying type. Now this would be good, because, of course, flying usually resists fighting, but now that would be reversed, much like Freeze Dry does, and be super effective against flying instead. A lot of fighting types run coverage to hit flying types. Flying types are a problem for them, and this would eliminate that need, wouldn't it? Another thing is this would be ×4 super effective against steel flying types, like Corviknight. That's crazy. Corviknight is one of the go-to checks to fighting types. This would demolish Corviknight with ×4 super effective damage. That is quite a thought, isn't it? Now, some of the suggested Pokemon that get this aren't that amazing, like Toxicroak Lucario, but Hawlucha would be great with it, with an Unburdened set. Hawlucha is a Pokemon that commonly carries Stone Edge as coverage for flying types. Now, it would not need to. Even though Aerial Assault is rather a weak attack in terms of base power, I think it would still be worth running, just for how much it frees up your other move slot and allows you to run other things, and also because it would punish Corviknight significantly. And maybe Skarmory if people are running Skarmory. And Pheromosa would obviously be a good utilizer of this, though I wonder if Pheromosa would rather just a high base power move due to the nature of that Pokemon, but I'm sure it could get some use out of it. This one sounds excellent, Aerial Assault. Glamour is an idea for a Psychic type special attack that is super effective against Dark types. And I've actually seen a similar move suggested by others. This is a popular idea to buff the Psychic type, because one of the Psychic type's biggest problems is their inability to hit Dark types, and Dark types being so ever-present. But Glamour here would certainly solve that issue, and this would be the first ever move that erases an immunity and turns it into a super effective attack, which is quite a thought. I think this will be a significant buff to the Psychic type as an offensive type. I will say that the Pokemon that receive this option proposed here aren't too exciting. Solrock, Lunatone, Celebi, Chimecho are not that amazing competitive. Hatterene is a good Pokemon, of course, but it's awkward because Hatterene's already a Psychic Fairy, so it already has good Fairy stab moves that threaten Dark types anyway, so it feels a bit of a waste. And Delphox, I mean, Mega Delphox is powerful in Champions, but we don't know if Mega Delphox will exist in a Showdown format or anything. It would be good on Champions OU, I suppose, to have a Glamour. But the move in theory is a very good idea that would be a significant buff. In the right context, it might even be overpowered. It would make Psychic as crazy as it was back in Gen 1, possibly. It would be far more difficult to deal with, wouldn't it? I think Psychic, other than the fact that Dark is immune to it, is not a bad offensive type. Few things resist it, just Steel and Psychic itself, so it would be quite spammable in that way. And then next we have Pollute. Pollute is a 60 power Poison type special attack. Throws disgusting garbage at the enemy, which is super effective against a Water type. The move has a 10% poison chance, and is guaranteed to poison against Water types. Now this is interesting, isn't it? I love the design of this, I must say. It's a cool flavor to pollute the water and then cause poison against the water if you hit them and deal double damage. And the Pokemon that get it are quite thematic, like Grimer and by extension Muck, of course. Muck Monday has come again. Garbodor would obviously get the garbage move, and Toxtricity and Grafaiai too. I don't know what Iron Jugulis is doing here. Iron Jugulis, you are not part of the team. Stop thinking that you are. What are you doing here with Pollute? I guess you are garbage, so that would make sense. You simply throw yourself at the opponent, do you, Iron Jugulis, you garbage freak? I hate you, Iron Jugulis. Also, it's interesting that I would be able to use this move in theory. I could just get some disgusting garbage from the dump and then throw it at the Pokemon, and this would allow me an option to kill Ogerpon Wellspring, because this would do ×4 super effective damage to Ogerpon Wellspring, which is interesting. So that would make me good against Ogerpon Wellspring, huh? All I need is some disgusting garbage to throw. Love the concept of this. I wonder how good it would be, though. I feel like it's kind of a weak base power to begin with. I mean, all of these moves are 70, which is already pretty weak, but they justify themselves by erasing a significant resistance or immunity or something like that the type usually has. This one, though, poison is already neutral to water, so you don't really need this against water, and I don't know if it's worth the sacrifice. Even if it is quite thematic, maybe the poison aspect would be worth it, but you could just like poison them normally, or go for Sludge Bomb, which has a 30% chance to poison them anyway. Like I said, it could be nice as a tech against Ogerpon Wellspring in particular, to just one-shot it. Maybe Muck could one-shot Ogerpon Wellspring with it. None of these Pokemon would be amazing with Pollute, really. I couldn't see Iron Moth running this, because Iron Moth is a very aggressive Pokemon, could not afford the base power drop, probably. Although I suppose it could afford coverage for water types, since it's weak to water. That's an interesting thought. Just still don't think it would be worth it, though. Even though it's the most interesting thematic idea, I think it is a lower-end move compared to Glamour and Aerial Assault, which both would be insane. Next, we have a move called Final Sting, which is exclusive to bee Pokemon, suggested by the Reddit user Drag and Heart. Final Sting is a bug-type physical attack with a 100 accuracy, and it says that the user attacks with the full force of their stinger and makes the target flinch. The higher the user's speed stat, the greater the damage the move deals, and the user will faint upon using this move. Now it says here 250 power. I assume that's the max power it can be, if you're fast enough. But it does not really specify how the base power of the move works. I guess we'll just imagine it having 250 power if you're super fast like Mega Beedrill, and lower power if you're slower. Now what's interesting about this attack is that this is also sort of mimicking an old gen mechanical quirk, just like how Dragoon Jump before sort of mirrors the way Hyper Beam worked in Gen 1, and that was the result of a glitch, but the Dragoon Jump move re-suggested a similar mechanic as an intended one. Final Sting emulates how Explosion used to work in older generations, Gens 1 to 3. Because back in the day, Explosion would actually deny the enemy their turn. Because if a Pokemon fainted for any reason, it would prevent the enemy from acting and finishing their turn. It would just end the turn. So you could actually use Explosion not just for damage, but as a way to deny the enemy a turn, preventing them from healing or boosting or something, and using it specifically for that, not just for the damage. So Final Sting here has a 100% flinch chance, according to the move description. It makes the target flinch, I assume that means 100% chance, which sort of mimics old gen Explosion, which would also deny them a turn. And I think that's pretty cool. I think this would actually be a significant buff in the favor of this move, since self-sacrificial moves like Explosion are not that amazing in modern generations ever since the power nerf. But the flinch effect here is a pretty incredible concept that would give it that extra bit of utility to deny a turn. I'm looking at one of these proposed Pokemon here. All of the bee Pokemon, of course, get Final Sting, but I think that this would be particularly incredible on Ribombee, who is already a sacrificial lead. Ribombee exists to set Sticky Web quickly, and then sacrifice itself. It's usually sacrificing itself after it sets Sticky Webs anyway. Living on one with a Focus Sash, and then doing something like Moonblast or Stun Spore on the way out. Final Sting would be way better. Now, of course, Ribombee only has 55 base attack, but the base power of the move would be very high as a result of Ribombee's high speed. So I think that would offset it, and it would actually deal considerable damage, and more importantly, it would make the target flinch and deny them from doing their turn, which could prevent them from setting hazards of their own. Funnily enough, self-KO moves are already quite good on Pokemon like this, because if you don't have a Pokemon active on your side of the field and you've KO'd it, they can't click Rapid Spin or Defog, because these moves need a target. So it's useful to KO yourself sometimes if you're a hazard setter, because you can deny them from hazard removal. But this would do it anyway, because you flinch them, so they don't even have an opportunity to click Rapid Spin or Defog anyway, as a result of them being flinched, huh? What an idea. But that would be insane on Ribombee, wouldn't it? It would obviously be good on Mega Beedrill too, just because it has such high attack and high speed. It would just do so much damage and be a great way to just sacrifice your Mega Beedrill, just like Explosion was in all the gens. Everything else, I don't really know if it would be any good. I don't think it's a great fit on Vespiquen, who isn't that great at the best of times, but I think it's used as a defensive Pokemon if it's ever used. And normal Beedrill scarcely even exists, to be honest. It's not very powerful. I suppose down in ZU, maybe Beedrill would have its day with Final Sting. But a great idea, I think. Wouldn't even be that powerful, I don't believe, because the amount of Pokemon that get it is so limited. Rabombi would be the most significant one. It might be a bit crazy on Rabombi. I wouldn't say crazy, though. It would be powerful. Wouldn't be game-breaking. I like the design that mimics a mechanic that sort of already existed, the turn denial of explosion. And it's something for these bee Pokemon to do that's thematically appropriate, that also would give them a bit of a buff, I think. Great move design that I could absolutely see actually existing in the game. It's not even that far-fetched of a concept. Here we have various ideas for moves from the Reddit user Squid system, the first one being called Crash Out, and the example image of the move is from SpongeBob, the television show. SpongeBob is very upset at Mr. Krabs, it would seem, over something, maybe not being paid well enough as an employee. Okay, Crash Out has quite an insane effect. For each attack the user misses, attack that fails, flinches the user takes, or turns spent immobilized by a status condition, this attack increases in power. So if you are forced to be inactive for any reason, including a miss, flinch, paralysis, etc., Crash Out will just gain 30 base power permanently, sort of like Rage Fist, how it ramps in power and it stays at that power. The power increases up to 300 if you get flinched 10 times, I guess. And it is a Dark-type physical attack. It's a Dark-type attack called a Crash Out. I think this sounds ludicrous. I can't imagine this existing in the game. It's a bit too memey of a concept, like someone got upset at getting flinched and designed this in a fit of seething rage. But would this be good? It appears to be present on Weavile, Annihilate Gyarados, Crawdaunt. Okay, on Crawdaunt, would the damage of this not be through the roof? With adaptability on top, would that not be unbelievable? You could sort of just make it, because this gets buffed in the background, you could just miss moves on purpose to charge Crash Out. I think you haven't thought this through. You could just run, like, the most inaccurate move ever, and just spam it on a bulky Pokemon so that Crash Out has 300 power. Then just pivot to Crawdaunt and have Vicious Rend times a million, basically. With adaptability. No, this would be ridiculous. This would be stupid. You just miss on purpose to charge the move up, man. What's a move with low accuracy? Let's go to the builder. Let's go to, like, Smeargle and sort by accuracy reversed. I guess it would have to be Dynamic Punch. Inferno. You can only go as low as 50, because the 30% one-hit KO moves are banned, but you could just like spam Dynamic Punch, Inferno, or Zap Cannon a bunch of times, miss on purpose, and then after 10 clicks of that, you've got the strongest move ever created. Crash Out on, actually on Weavile. Wait a minute, just Weavile could just be faster than the entire world. You just go Scarf Weavile or something and spam Crash Out. No, you've accidentally made Vicious Rend 2 here. Put it back in the kitchen. Maybe just remove misses from this text, because then the other ones can't be controlled as much, but you can miss on purpose to charge the move up. You can't really get flinched on purpose to charge the move up. You could get parried on purpose, perhaps? Is there a way to paralyze yourself? Is there a move that paralyzes yourself? I think there might be. I can't think of it, but I think there might be a way to get paralyzed on purpose. Anyway, this one is too powerful. This one's crazy. Mend Body. Ground-type status move, and we have the SpongeBob and Patrick helping to mend Squidward's body. I can't remember this one. What episode was this? They must have made like a clay Squidward at his art studio or something. I can't remember it. Anyway, the user scrapes up the earth and debris around it to repair damage done to its inorganic body, healing 1/4 of its max HP. If there are spikes or stealth rocks on the field, the user removes one layer of them at random, healing an additional 1/4 HP. Fails if user is healthy. Now this is an interesting idea. I actually think I like this one quite a bit. This is a healing move that also doubles as hazard removal. But it can only remove spikes and stealth rock, not toxic spikes or sticky web. And it only removes one layer of them at a time. But if it does so, it also heals you for an extra 1/4, being equivalent to recover. I think this would not be broken. I think that this sounds kind of cool. Makago gets it. That's a bonus. Shuckle gets a form of hazard removal. Okay, who gets this that would be noteworthy? I suppose Registeel? Could Registeel be usable if it has hazard removal? It doesn't actually even have a healing move now that I think about it. This would be not only healing, but hazard removal on a bunch of Pokemon that don't get it. Okay, Tyranitar's there, and Garganacl is there. Tyranitar and Garganacl would be excellent with this, for sure. I'm gonna say this is a good idea, and it would be powerful, but not too powerful. I think this is a good move design. Spirit Burst. We have Goku as Infernape. Infernape Blast. It's his famous move, Infernape Blast, he's doing. Spirit Burst is a fighting type special attack with 130 base power, 95 accuracy. Okay, what is the catch? What the hell? This attack's recoil is equal to half damage dealt. Okay, it does a lot of recoil to yourself, but it's an insanely powerful fighting type special attack. Okay, in the move description, it also has the design ethos of the move. Move distribution is limited to mostly fighting type Pokemon, especially those with specifically martial arts as a design focus, with some others thrown in. Wait a moment, folks. Alakazam gets this. They're giving it to Alakazam. Alakazam does not have a martial arts focus. And I think that perhaps you're seeing what I'm seeing, the fact that Alakazam has a Magic Guard, which makes it immune to the recoil, and this would basically be a way better version of Focus Blast for Alakazam. Now I wonder, because Alakazam is not presently OU, but would this be enough to make Alakazam OU? Because that would be an insanely good option for Alakazam. Just a 130 power fighting type special attack with no downside, that would perfectly complement Alakazam. It already uses Focus Blast for lack of anything better, and there's the risk of that missing. This might push Alakazam to GOAT status. Maybe that's the intent. That might be too good on Alakazam, I would say. I think the recoil might be too debilitating on all the other Pokemon too. I can't see like Lucario using this and just ending its own life. Half recoil is a bit much. It's like head smash type recoil. Next we have Cratering Crush, which is a rock type physical move with 110 power and 100 accuracy, with the Yamcha image there from Dragon Ball Z, who's been defeated by the Cratering Crush, I guess. They've gotten Yamcha with it. They've gotten him. The user slams their rock-hard body into a target with enough force to crater the ground beneath them, dealing massive damage, but harshly lowering the user's speed. Okay, I think that means -2 speed upon use. So on a Pokemon that's slow already, this would be good. It also is occurring to me now that this designer has not specified the PP that these moves will receive, and that is interesting. Maybe they're still deciding how much PP these will have. The balancing is still being worked out. This move is distributed to various rock types. I mean, of course this would be good on anything slow. Probably bad on anything fast. Although you could just use it like close combat, or not close combat, like Draco Meteor or Overheat, use it and then switch out. So Terrakion could use it for that purpose. Terrakion, one of the Pokemon that gets it. This sounds like a great move. It sounds like a powerful attack. I think that this would be quite good on multiple Pokemon suggested here. Yeah, well, this would be kind of insane, actually, now that I think about it. Would this not be a bit insane? Pokemon are already using Stone Edge with 100 power, 80 accuracy. This would be even better with a fairly manageable drawback. Yeah, this would be crazy. This would be a crazy move. Next we have Dancing Blade, which is a 20 power Steel-type physical attack with 90 accuracy. A consecutive 3-slash attack using a sharpened metal-like blade or appendage that grows in power with each successful hit. The image here is of Marth from Super Smash Bros. Killing Vulpix in cold blood. Terrible. But it's Scizor instead of Marth. Not gonna lie, this is just triple axle for Steel-type mods. Yeah, that is what that is. Not a bad idea. Triple axle currently only has that effect on itself. Nothing else has the triple axle effect, so not a terrible idea to give it to another type, I suppose. But the first Pokemon suggested here is Scizor, and I can't help but notice that Scizor has the ability Technician, which would boost the power of the move. Wait, how would this work? Because would this boost every hit of the move with Technician, or would it actually change? Because the second hit of Dancing Blade would then be... I think it might boost just the first 2 hits and not the third, because the third hit is 60 power in the original move. I'm not sure. Maybe it would also apply the Technician boost to the third hit. Either way, it would significantly enhance the damage output of Dancing Blade on Scizor, thanks to Technician. That would be crazy. In general, this sounds like a good Steel-type stab attack that would also be nice on other Pokemon healers such as Excadrill and King Gambit. I think this will be a fine addition. It's not that flashy, but will be powerful. Maybe a bit much on Scizor in particular, depending on how the damage is calculated. And this is the final suggestion by this user. I think the best idea here is Mend Body, probably. Mend Body is my favorite idea here. The other ideas are... Well, Crash Out is just insane, and the other ideas are just generic strong attacks, in my opinion, except for the fighting one, which would only be good on Alakazam, who can ignore the downside of it. Here we have some move suggestions from the user Scrongling Snortura. The first one here is Spirit Snatch, which is a ghost-type physical attack with only 20 power and 100% accuracy. This move has the effect: if the target has a substitute, the user steals it. This move deals double damage. Damage dealt after the substitute is stolen. That is very interesting. An anti-substitute mechanic. There's not too many anti-substitute mechanics in Pokemon. There are sound-based moves which bypass substitute. They just attack through the substitute. The substitute stays up, but you hit the Pokemon behind it. And there's Infiltrator, the ability, which also allows all attacks to hit behind substitutes. But this would actually steal a substitute, which has an interesting momentum shift effect. This could be a really interesting move, because a substitute sweeper that is safely behind the plush piece of merchandise sitting there boosting up would now have the tables completely turned on it as you steal the substitute from them and then damage them through the substitute with a bit more damage. And now you have a protective barrier to shield yourself from their boosted attacks. This would kind of destroy substitute sweepers. I will say, though, it seems very specific. Substitute sweepers are fairly common, but not so common that this would be like an amazing general option. And also, the base power of the move itself is quite low, so you couldn't just use this as a general attack. It would not be strong enough. It would be specifically used for anti-substitute tech or just little chip damage if you have a little better to do, but it is not powerful enough to be used as a normal attack. It's interesting, though. It could be used as a tech against a particular Pokemon. I could see it actually having some value there. I will say that none of the Pokemon that are suggested here for it, including Misdreavus and Mimikyu and Spiritomb, are particularly great Pokemon. Maybe Grimmsnarl could use it. An Impidimp is here, so Grimmsnarl would get it by extension. Maybe you could use it there, or Hisui and Zoroark. Mimikyu? No, Mimikyu wouldn't really be great at using it. I would think like a bulky Pokemon uses this as a backup option or a tech option when they can afford a move slot. That's where I would see this being good. It's not really great on a frail Pokemon with no recovery. Could be nice in like a lower tier on the Spiritomb or something, or the Driftblim, but even then, I'm not so sure. I don't know if they could afford the move slot, knowing what they're up to. Interesting idea, though. I like the concept. I don't know how viable it would be in practice. Probably not very viable, but could be on the right Pokemon if it was on a different Pokemon. Next we have Venom Dart, which is a 70 power poison-type physical attack with 100 accuracy. Effect: the user throws a shard of crystallized venom at the target. If the target protects, this attack shatters against the barrier and sets up one layer of toxic spikes. I like the flavor of this, like it's a dart that is designed to shatter the protective barrier. And it's an interesting concept that breaks protection and sets a layer of toxic spikes. Could be cool. I feel as if this would not be that practical, and you'd probably just rather a physical poison attack with more power, because you're probably not going to be in a situation where they're protecting against a physical attack that often. Not that many things run Protect these days. Gliscor runs it. Maybe a couple things run it. It's not as ubiquitous of an option as it used to be in older gens, so I don't know how much value you'd get out of this. This could be interesting in doubles, though, because I assume it would break the protection and then allow your ally to attack. Like, it wouldn't just set the layer of toxic spike, it would actually break the protect, so your ally could then hit through. So it'd be sort of like Feint, the move, which is sometimes used in doubles, but this might be a interesting alternative because of the fact that it's also just a decent poison-type stab option, on top of being protection breaking. Nothing here is that fantastic in doubles, though, except I suppose the Ultra Beasts could be. Since they're fast and would now have a form of protection breaking. Maybe Salazzle, because it's fast. Though Salazzle kind of stinks. Interesting idea. I like the flavor of these designs so far. They're very easy to imagine in-game and very thematically cool. Venom Dart, though, I don't know if will be that amazing in singles. Could be good in double. Mercury Geyser, the steel type special attack with 90 power and 100 accuracy, and has the effect where the target is drenched in liquid mercury, poisoning it only if it's a steel type. Now this I think would be good. This is a new way to poison steel types, which is not an easy thing to accomplish because steel types are immune to poison type attacks and immune to the move Toxic and other direct poison applications. But you can sometimes poison steel types with specific methods like the move Twin Needle, which can poison them, and also the ability Corrosion allows you to select the poison move against a steel type. But this would be a new way, and I think that this would be viable probably because it's just a 90 power steel type special attack, which is higher power than the current standard option of Flash Cannon, which is usually what steel types use. And I think this has a better effect than Flash Cannon, which just has a low chance to drop special defense. I think Mercury Geyser would be much better. And this seems to be distributed to various legendaries, like Dialga and the Crawdaunt, and Solgaleo and Necrozma. That's interesting. Heatran gets it. I imagine Heatran could get use out of it. It already uses Flash Cannon on some sets. This would be an upgrade. Dialga could certainly use it. Hisuian Goodra can certainly use it. I don't know if Galarian Slowking would use it here. Probably preferring to just use Poison Stab. I don't know if it would get much out of a steel move. Poison hits Fairy anyway. Reginald could use it here. Reginald is here. Very interesting idea. I think this is the best sounding, and I like the idea thematically too. Mercury poisoning. As a way to poison a steel type. That actually feels like it makes sense. Sort of. As a way to poison a steel type. It might be a bit too good even, because steel types being immune to poison is a big part of their benefit, so this would erase that benefit. Not that many things get it though, so I don't know if it had much of an impact. It'd be a buff to Heatran. And then finally we have Tempest, which is a dragon type special attack with 110 power and 100 accuracy. The effect is that the user unleashes a storm of draconic winds that invigorate the target, causing their next attacking move to be a crit. Okay, so this is similar to the effect of Glaive Rush, which is Baxcalibur's signature move. Glaive Rush has the effect of giving you a debuff where the enemy will deal double damage to you on the next turn, as a drawback for the high power of the move, which is 110 power. Tempest is, instead of you taking double damage yourself, it causes the enemy's next attacking move to be a crit. Honestly, this seems too good. I don't think this is that great of a drawback, and it also is a little bit restrictive. I assume that this is an effect that would apply to the target, and therefore if they switch, it would go away. So it's kind of less consistent for the opponent to actually punish your Tempest, because maybe they want to exit on the next turn. Whereas Glaive Rush always means your opponent's going to do double damage to you, although now that I think about it, the enemy would have a crit also against your own defensive switch out, which might be a problem. Okay, now that I think about it, the design is more interesting than I realized, because you give them this effect, they crit on the next turn, and if you try to exit, which you usually do after clicking Draco Meteor, they would actually crit whatever comes in and deal 1.5x damage to it. But I'm sure you would have a defensive Pokemon sturdy enough to tank a crit, but this would just be an interesting effect because you would be more punished, perhaps, in certain scenarios, and have less of a defensive leg to stand on. I would be curious if this would be too good of a move, because it is powerful, accurate, and with a drawback that seems manageable, and the Pokemon that get it up strong too, like Raging Bolt and Kingdra and such. Kingdra and Rain can be powerful. I don't know what Guzzlord is doing here. I don't know who invited him, or why he is being considered for anything, but he's here against my will and against my consent, but I didn't make the move, I suppose. The creator has decided that Guzzlord gets a new good move. I suppose that's okay. The more I think about it, the more interesting this move feels, and I think it would probably outclass Draco Meteor, but not necessarily, I guess, because of the fact that you are buffing the enemy and making your own defensive switch-ins worse. Certainly an interesting idea. I think that this individual has very cool concepts for moves here, with cool flavor to them that feel believable. They don't feel too over-designed, and they feel like they would fit in the game. I think that these are good move designs, even if some of them wouldn't be super good competitively. They feel like there would be cool niche options at the very least, which I think is good design too, to have occasionally used niche options, sort of like the move Feint, which is a good example. Not very common, but has niche application in doubles. Next we have a very interesting move designed by the player Interplanetary Thorns, and it is called Sight. Sight is a 90 power, 100% accurate special attack. And it says, this move deals damage the turn is used. And this is highly compelling to me. This is very compelling because this is sort of a reversal and a deconstruction of the Future Sight move, which is of course a move that deals damage 2 turns after being used, whereas normal Sight would therefore deal damage the turn is used. And now it's making me wonder why Future Sight even deals damage. You're just seeing something, you're not like attacking. It's not like future damage, it's Future Sight, like you're just looking at something in the future. Why does it then deal 120 damage? The move Sight, I think, is like a satire, like a Dadaist move to question the concept of Future Sight in its essence, where why would Sight be inherently damaging? And this is drawing attention to that with the absurd assertion that Sight would deal 90 power worth of damage the turn is used. As if simply looking at a thing would attack it. That is ridiculous. Rarely do you see a move suggestion that is a critique and a response to other move suggestions or existing moves in Pokemon. It's quite an interesting concept. And here we have another very compelling one by Citrus131. It's called Hindsight. Hindsight is a Psychic-type special attack with 120 power and 100 accuracy that deals damage 2 turns before it is used. Now what in the world, how would this operate? You would go back in time to 2 turns prior and then deal damage to the thing that was in 2 turns ago. It would reverse time and do so, like recreating the game state of 2 turns ago and then dealing damage. I would say that this is of course a joke, it's a silly joke, and it's a joke building upon the joke of Sight, which was also a funny quip rather than a serious move suggestion. People are not being serious on Reddit, they're making jokes, and I hate them. And Reddit, you think you're very funny for this, but really you're not taking Pokemon move fan design very seriously, and it's a very serious form of art, so I would consider this quite offensive. But Hindsight, if I were to take it seriously, as I do, because Pokemon is very serious to me, Hindsight would be very powerful, because you could see that 2 turns ago a poison type or a fighting type was in, and then click Hindsight to reverse time and then kill the guy that was in 2 turns ago. So this would add a layer of time travel to Pokemon, where you would have to factor in whether a guy with Hindsight is going to be in 2 turns later to threaten you. And that would just, that would really, I think it would break the game, in fact. It would break the space-time continuum, probably, if we introduced a move like this. And Tapu Lele gets it too. Tapu Lele getting it is a disaster, because that would deal lethal damage to Toxapex. Wait a second, maybe Hindsight isn't so bad. Maybe you could go back in time and kill Toxapex. That's what I would do if I had a time machine. Maybe you've got the right idea, Hindsight design. Anyway, thank you Redditors for suggesting Pokemon moves and adding value to society. Which was your favorite move suggestion in this video? What is your opinion on the quality of these move suggestions? You let me know down below in the comments, and thank you very much for watching.